Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Elisa here with Thoughtful Creativity. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in this very quick and easy video, I would love to share with you how I get rid of the darts, particularly the bust dart. And this will come in handy for you in a variety of different situations, but two that I can think of right off the bat. Number one, if you're working with a woven bodice block, so bodice block for fabrics that do not stretch, and you have a bust dart, and for whatever reason you want to get rid of it, maybe there's a particular design that you're going for, maybe you want to transform this bodice block into a knit bodice block, or whatever else is in your mind. Let's say you just want to get rid of that bust dart. And if you're working with a knit bodice block and you have a gaping armhole, and if you watched the previous video in the knit bodice block series, we were talking about how to fix that gaping armhole, and that results an actual dart in a side seam that we then eased into the side seam of the back pattern piece. This will be another great way how to get rid of that excess but still maintain the same side seam length on the front pattern piece as on the back pattern piece. So let me share with you how I do that. Let's go ahead and get started with the front pattern piece because that's where we have the dart. And as you might know, you can actually transfer not only this dart, but a lot of other darts as well into pretty much anywhere. Sometimes it's done for convenience purposes, sometimes it's done to alter the pattern, and sometimes you do that as a design element as well. So here is my bust apex right over here. And if you don't have your dart all the way to the bust apex, go ahead and determine that first. A lot of times the actual dart is going to be a little bit away from the bust apex just because we don't want that dart to go all the way to that point. So definitely determine where your bust apex is at because that's where we're going to work with. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark here approximately a midpoint of the neckline curve. It doesn't have to be precise, just kind of like in the middle. I'm also going to do the same right here in the armhole, just somewhere in the lower part right over here. There we go. And somewhere in the middle of the shoulder seam as well. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and connect all of these points with a bust apex. We can also go ahead and mark a little point straight perpendicular right here on the bottom and do a straight perpendicular line from the bust apex all the way to the hem of the garment. This one kind of got a little sideways, so please disregard that. So now we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 different positions where we're going to be redirecting this dart. So let's go ahead and cut through these lines, but not all the way, so that way they're still anchored right over here, so that way we can actually move them around and redirect this dart. Unfortunately here my paper actually gave in, so it did cut through all the way, but it's all right, we'll make it work. I'm gonna go ahead and place this colored paper underneath so that way you can see a little bit better how we're going to be working with this pattern piece. So first thing that I do, I actually take a ruler and I measure the dart. I measure the distance between one dart leg and another dart leg at the very end of the dart. And my distance is 1.5 inches. For you it will be a different amount, but now I know that 1.5 inches is the amount that I have to redistribute into other places of the pattern in order to eliminate the bust dart. And I also know that we can't really put too much into the neckline and in the shoulder seam without actually skewing the pattern a lot. So about 1/8 inch, maybe up to 1/4 inch, we can redistribute into the neckline and a shoulder seam. So let's go ahead and get that done first. So it's really nice if you have some scotch tape or maybe painter's tape handy. That definitely helps. So what I'm going to do here, this was the line from the bust apex all the way to the neckline. I'm gonna go ahead and open it, let's say about 1/8 inch. That way it's going to add just 1/4 inch to the neckline all the way around. So of course we have the front pattern piece on the left and on the right. So 1/8 inch here and 1/8 inch on another side is going to give us 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and do exactly the same right over here. Here sometimes I can get away with 1/4 inch. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I know that these seem like such small amounts, but a little bit of here and a little bit of there, and it definitely helps us to either reduce or to eliminate the bust dart completely. Now when we talk about armholes, I have found from my personal experience that armholes are a different story. They can actually take quite a big amount of the dart being released into it. And I do that not only when I'm trying to eliminate the bust dart or create a looser fitting garment, but also, let's say, when I'm constructing a jacket. So a good example is the neoprene jacket video where I was constructing a jacket from a woven bodice block, and I wanted the armhole to be bigger so that way you can account for the thickness of the clothing underneath the jacket. So I often do that, especially when I want a blouse or a shirt where I don't want the sleeves or the armhole to be super snug or tight fitting. So that's what I usually do. I might leave the dart, but then I also partially open it up into the armhole. So here I have two options for you. Option number one, you can go ahead and completely close this dart like so and open it up into the armhole. Of course, you will need to correct your armhole with a French curve or redraft it completely. Or what you can do is you can go ahead and measure this amount, say this is an inch, and open this dart into the armhole by half an inch, so half of that. And the rest of the dart, oh, I got stuck. The rest of the dart, you can go ahead and open it up into the bottom of your garment. So you can also do that as well. So you have a couple of options. You can either open it up completely into here, or you can split this amount between the armhole and the hem of the garment. Now let's go ahead and tidy this up. Let's copy this on a new piece of paper. We'll tidy up the neckline, we'll tidy up the shoulder seam, we'll do the same with the armhole and everything else. Now, this is what we started with, right? The front pattern piece with the bust dart. Then we did some work on it, and this is how it looked. And then that turned into this, which is exactly the same thing. I just did go ahead and tidy up the armhole and the neckline as well. Now, before you go ahead and make your test garment, we must not forget that once you change something on a front pattern piece, that will also impact the back pattern piece as well. So for example, we did go ahead and we opened up some of the dart volume into the shoulder seam right over here. That was 1/4 of an inch. Now, if we take the back pattern piece, which hasn't been altered at all, and we place shoulder seams together, you will see that the shoulder seam on a front pattern piece is 1/4 of an inch longer than that on the back pattern piece. Here you have 3 options that I usually use. Option number 1, you can just go ahead and cut away this 1/4 of an inch and just go ahead and merge it into the rest of the armhole. Number 2, you can go ahead and build that 1/4 of an inch back to the back pattern piece, so making the back pattern piece longer so that way it would match the front pattern piece. Or taking that amount, 1/4 of an inch, and dividing that in half and adding half over here, so 1/8 of an inch here and 1/8 of an inch to the back pattern piece, so that way it's evenly distributed. So you can use whichever one you like and see what works best for you. And there it is, the same pattern, one with a bust dart, one without the bust dart. Now let's go ahead and compare them so that way you can visually see what it did to our original pattern. So I'm gonna go ahead and align the center front seams right over here. Now you can see that the pattern that has no bust dart is a little bit higher here at the shoulder point because we did redirect about 1/8 of an inch of the dart volume over here, and that did bring it up. Of course, it is also longer at the side seam over here. You can see the changes in the armhole, and of course also the change in the width of the pattern altogether because we did redirect some of the dart volume to the hem of the garment. So you see there are differences, and of course that will also reflect in how the garment will fit you. So definitely make a test garment, see what you like, see what you don't like. Maybe there are some adjustments that you would like to make, but this is a really good way that I find really helps me to get rid of the dart in the situations where I really want to do that. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested to see a knit bodice block series, then click on the video series that you see on your screen right now, and that will take you to a full playlist of how to work with knit bodice block that we have drafted earlier on this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy, thoughtful sewing. Bye!